Hello, and welcome to episode 6 of Comic Art Review. I'm Adam Rath, and I'm joined with Sandy Plunkett. And today, we're going to be reviewing the amazing artwork of Ernie Chan. Now, here we see the original page that we're going to be reviewing that showed up in Savage Sword, issue number 116. Now, this issue is near and dear to my heart because this is the first issue that I bought off the rack in June of 1985. We hope you enjoy today's episode. Well, I hope you like the heavy metal music in the background because I don't think there's any other way to read Conan the Barbarian than with a little bit of aggressive music. So, who is Ernie Chan? Well, Ernesto, or Ernie as many people know him, was born in 1940 and passed away in 2012. In 1970, he moved to the U.S. as he's a Chinese American. And in 1972, he started at DC, and he primarily worked in horror books. So a lot of the Bronze Age classics that we're familiar with, like House of Mystery, etc. In 1976, he earned his citizenship. And then from 75 to 77, he was the primary cover artist at DC, but he was known as Chua at that time. Now, in 1978, he transitioned over and he worked almost exclusively at Marvel on their comics and primarily focused on Savage Sword as well as Conan the Barbarian and some of the more traditional comic books rather than the magazines. In the 1990s, he moved into the video game world, and many folks don't know, but he actually worked with Sega and did a lot of their artwork in game design. He retired in 2002, but he still made a lot of trips around the convention circuit, as you can see here, working on sketches for a lot of different folks.
Okay. Hi, this is Sandy, taking over from Adam, and I'm going to be talking a little bit about why I feel this is a pretty nice page and why it's worth talking about. When Adam showed me this page a couple of years ago, something did strike me in particular, but I couldn't quite put my finger on what it was. Thinking about it for this blog, I realized it's because Ernie Chan uses his blocking in a particularly effective way. Now, the term blocking isn't one you usually hear in terms of comic book art, but it is a term that both film directors and theater directors use, and it's an important element of the directing. When you're directing either a movie or a theater production, one of the things you have to keep in mind is how the characters move around the stage. That is generally called blocking. There are a lot of things you have to keep in mind, and one of them is simply line of sight. If two characters are talking, three characters are talking, and they're moving around the stage, you want to make sure that one of the actors is not blocking the line of sight from the audience. And this sounds like a fairly simple thing, but sometimes if you have a stage or a movie set full of a lot of actors, that is actually a fairly complicated thing. And some directors, as you can see here, actually have fairly elaborate diagrams to help them work through the process. As I said, it's something that directors of both theater and movies have to think about. But there's aspects of blocking, or staging as it's sometimes called, which is unique to filming. The difference between theater and movies, of course, is that movie scenes often have multiple cameras and the cameras can move. This gives you different perspectives and different angles on the actors you're filming. There's this rule that most film students have pressed upon them when they're going through school, and that is the 180-degree rule. And this diagram makes it pretty clear what that rule is. If you have two characters talking, you keep your camera on the side of the line of one side of the line of action. The line of action is that line that you can draw between these two characters. Why it's important to stay along that arc and not exceed that line is that you can run the risk of disorienting your viewers. They're not really sure where they are in relationship to the characters. So always make sure that the audience, the viewers, know where they are in relationship to the characters. Now look at this page again. You can see that whether the artist, Chan, was conscious of it or not, he's abiding by that 180-degree rule. His camera in all these 4 panels always stays on that one side of the scene, and that achieves a great deal of clarity. But what Chan is also doing through his blocking is to emphasize something which is a very salient feature of Conan. Conan, as Robert E. Howard described him, is massive. He's a giant. He dominates the room. And the way that Chan puts Conan in the front of the group he's with emphasizes that he, in every panel, is the largest figure on the page. He could have chosen to stage any one of these panels different ways. There's a couple panels where Conan isn't talking, and he might have chosen to make one of the background characters a foreground character, but he didn't. He consciously keeps Conan in front to show you that he's the most important person, and by the fact that he is the closest to the camera, he will always be the dominant figure. And I suspect that he wasn't even entirely conscious of doing this, but he has a good dramatic sense, and he knew that this is important, because in the story you always want to have the feel of the character emphasized by the dramatics. Once you start becoming sensitive to this kind of work that a comic artist does, you start seeing how much the compositions and the camera angles are all contributing to your enjoyment of the story. So there you go, another lesson for today. See you next time.